Welcome to the deep dive. We've got this really fascinating stack of sources here, looking at the early lives of four very famous literary sisters.
That's right. Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy March.
And we're here to really pull out the core insights. What do these foundational stories tell us?
Exactly. This isn't just about plot. We're digging into the sociology, the morality, how things like ambition and duty crash into each other in their lives.
Yeah, and how those sacrifices they make really define what success even means for them. And it kicks off right away, doesn't it? Page one, you hear them complaining. It sets the stage perfectly.
It really does. Jo's complaining about being shut up for hours with a nervous, fussy old lady.
And Meg hates teaching those tiresome children nearly all day.
It captures that feeling. They're young, they don't have much money, they're working hard.
So their first thought is pretty simple.
Yeah, Jo kind of sums it up. They just want to each buy what we want and have a little fun. It's very transactional, almost, like happiness is something you buy.
That's a great way to put it. Transactional. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. Those initial complaints, they really paint these four distinct personalities, almost like prototypes.
Exactly. Like archetypes. They haven't really started evolving much yet, right?
Yeah.
They're defined by these immediate mannerisms, these flaws.
So you have Jo, the tomboy,
Right.
examining her shoes like a gentleman.
Yeah, in a gentlemanly manner, the source says. Prone to slang, plays the brother. She's all about restlessness, rejecting the expected feminine stuff.
And then the complete opposite almost is Meg. She complains about work, sure, but she's instantly labeled too particular and prim.
Right. The sources are quite pointed there. Nice manners. But then that affected speech when she's trying to sound, well, elegant.
Her burden is kind of knowing how things should be done socially.
And then Beth, the mouse. Everyone loves her.
Yeah, she seems defined more by just quiet kindness than by doing much.
Well, her physical burden is stated as dishes and dusters. And the emotional one is envying girls with nice pianos and being afraid of people. But the crucial detail, I think, is that even with all that housework, her hand is described as one that all the dishwashing and dusting in the world could not make ungentle.
Okay, so she's the gentle soul, the anchor.
Pretty much. Non-threatening. And then Amy, she gets tagged with that same altogether too particular and prim label as Meg sometimes.
With that warning, she'll become a affected little goose.
Yeah. She's the one who's really focused on sort of social climbing and appearances from the start.
And Marmee steps right in, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Imposes this, well, intense moral framework.
Immediately, the Pilgrim's Progress analogy. Suddenly, their everyday struggles aren't just struggles, they're burdens they have to overcome, like characters in the book.
It is kind of jarring how fast that religious context comes in, pulling them out of the slough of despond, promising a guidebook.
Which turn out to be those little colored testaments on Christmas. It tells you straight up the author's primary aim here is moral teaching, duty over self.
Definitely.
And that duty gets tested right away, Christmas morning. They see that nice breakfast.
A moment of real temptation, you imagine.
For sure. But then Marmee brings up the Hummels, that really poor family.
And the sources show them hesitating, but then they do it. They give up their own meal.
Meg even says the lesson out loud. Loving our neighbor better than ourselves. It's like step one on that pilgrim's path. Sacrifice equals character.
Okay, so that's the moral frame. But before we get too deep into society's rules, we have to talk about their home life. Specifically, Jo's theater stuff.
Oh, absolutely. The amateur dramatics, it's fantastic. Tells you so much about their energy, their creativity.
Hugo the villain, Zara, Roderigo, and the props.
The clanking sword, the slouching hat, the famous boots. It's just pure, wonderful chaos.
And that climax where the tower fell with a crash and buried the unhappy lovers in the ruins.
Perfect. It's such a great picture of their, slightly uncontrolled, very enthusiastic world.
And then, bam! Contrast that pure chaos with the absolute stiffness of society. Meg and Jo go to Mrs. Gardner's party.
And Meg goes into full-on etiquette coach mode.
It's almost comical, telling Jo, hold your shoulders straight, take short steps.
And the signaling. Use your eyebrows, don't do anything unladylike, like winking.
It's just a perfect little scene showing how society tries to, well, crush that natural energy Jo has.
Which, of course, Jo completely fails at. She feels like a colt in a flower garden.
Hiding her burned dress, wanting to talk skates with the boys.
She's just rebelling internally against all that decorum.
And her awkwardness, hiding away in that curtained alcove, that actually leads to something huge.
Right. That's where she meets Laurie, the Lawrence boy. And this connection is just fundamental to everything that follows.
We learned about him quickly kept isolated by his grandfather, educated, speaks French.
From Vevey, yeah. But he proves himself not through his status, but through, like, basic kindness.
When things go wrong at the party, Meg sprains her ankle.
In those silly shoes, the source calls them. High heels, basically.
And Joe spills coffee all over her dress. He helps them clean up.
And afterwards, Meg's judgment is really simple, but important. She just says, Laurie is a nice boy.
Like he passed some kind of character test, not about money, but about how he acted under pressure.
Exactly. So, okay, they fail a bit when they try to fit into society. What about when they try to rebel against work?
Ah, the resting and reveling experiment. Disaster zone.
Total disaster. They decide, right, let's just take a break from all duties. And the consequences are immediate and slightly ridiculous.
Meg's muslin dress gets ruined in the wash. Joe reads nonstop, gets a headache, burns her nose boating.
But the absolute peak, or maybe the low point, is Joe's dinner party attempt.
Oh, the shopping list is classic. A very young lobster, some very old asparagus, and 2 boxes of acid strawberries.
It's just awful. Miss Crocker makes a face. Amy apparently chokes on something. The whole thing just collapses.
It really shows Joe's impulsiveness, right? She thinks hosting is about buying fancy stuff, not actually, cooking or planning.
And there's a real cost to this laziness, beyond just a bad meal.
Beth's bird. Pip?
Yeah. Pip dies from neglect while they're all off resting and reveling.
And that hits hard. It's maybe the first time the sources show that being selfish and lazy has, a real, irreversible consequence.
Jo even says it herself, planning the bird's funeral. Lounging and larking doesn't pay. Lesson learned. Painfully.
Okay, so failure teaches them some hard lessons, but that connection with the Lawrences, it starts to pay off, quietly, especially for Beth.
Yes, this is such a lovely part. Mr. Lawrence, the grandfather, notices his grand piano isn't being used.
He says it's suffering from want of use.
Right. And he makes this very subtle offer. Maybe one of the girls could practice on it, just to keep it in tune. It's presented as him needing the favor.
Which is perfect for Beth, who's so shy. It's an irresistible temptation.
She starts sneaking over when he and Laurie are out, and this is huge for her, overcoming that shyness.
And eventually she actually goes to thank him.
Which is monumental for Beth. She puts her arms around his neck, gives him a kiss, and this simple, genuine act really affects the old man.
Makes him think of his own daughter.
Yeah, he says something like, he had a little girl once with eyes like these. So that gift of music, it becomes this really touching, two-way emotional thing.
But that quiet happiness gets completely shattered, doesn't it? The big crisis hits.
Father's illness. The news arrives via those horrid telegraph things.
Yeah.
And they need money, now, to bring him home.
And Joe's reaction is, well, it's pure Joe. Impulsive, dramatic sacrifice.
It's actually quite shocking when you think about it. Her first instinct isn't, I'll write something to sell. It's, I'll sell my hair.
Her one beauty, $25.
The family's reaction says it all. Your beautiful hair. It's not just about the money.
No, it's her identity, her vanity, traded for cash. And even though she tries to be brave about it...
Meg finds her crying later. My hair. That little moment of private grief makes it so much more real than just a plot device. It's real sacrifice.
But that ambition, it doesn't just stop at sacrifice. It pushes her professionally, too.
Right. She does sell 2 stories to a newspaper editor.
Who doesn't pay beginners, crucially.
No money yet, but he offers to publish them and give her feedback. And Jo is thrilled. She sees a path, maybe, to support myself and help the girls.
So she's starting to channel that energy into something productive, but the motivation is still family, still duty, not fame for fame's sake.
Exactly. And the crisis also shines a light on John Brooke, Laurie's tutor.
He gets christened Mr. Braidhart for helping out.
And this leads to him and Meg. But Mr. and Mrs. March make them wait. Meg has to be 20. They need to test the relationship over time.
Which again emphasizes patience, respect, things valued more highly than just, marrying someone with prospects right away.
So as they get older, the sources really push them to face their own flaws, their bosom enemies, and also the limits society puts on them. Amy's school incident is brutal.
Oh, the limes. She gets caught with limes, has to throw them out the window.
Where her sworn foes, these little Irish kids, snatch them up, adding insult to injury.
And then the teacher, Mr. Davis, actually hits her on the hand.
And the source is very clear. The feeling that lasts is shame and pain, which she never forgot.
So for Amy, who's proud and used to being loved at home, that public humiliation is formative. It hardens her resolve, maybe to control her own circumstances later.
Definitely. And then Amy gets her own back in a way, but it's awful. She burns Joe's manuscript.
After Joe excludes her from an outing, and Joe's temper just explodes.
That bosom enemy takes over, shakes Amy till her teeth chattered, gives her a parting box on her sister's ear. It's quite violent.
And the anger doesn't just disappear. That's the scary part. Later, when they're skating,
Joe sees Amy heading towards thin ice and doesn't warn her, at least not right away. She only turns back when the ice actually breaks.
and Laurie has to pull Amy out. It's a near disaster caused entirely by Joe letting her anger fester.
And that forces the big conversation. Joe has to confront her temper, and Marmee reveals she has the same struggle.
That her own temper is her bosom enemy, too.
It makes it feel less like just Joe's personal failing and more like this generational battle for women against maybe frustration, confinement. And Marmee says she only manages it with her husband's quiet support.
Wow. Okay, so internal battles. What about external relationships? The big one is Laurie proposing to Joe.
Right. He's in college now, flirting, using slang, nearly got expelled, apparently. He proposes.
And Joe turns him down, flat out.
Her reasoning is interesting. She says they're too much alike, both have hot tempers and strong wills, both too fond of freedom.
She thinks they'd just clash constantly, rebel against marriage itself.
That's what she says. But you wonder, is it just compatibility? Or does she sense she needs something different? Someone maybe more challenging, less like her younger self.
Someone who won't just indulge her, perhaps.
Well, the sources seem to set up that alternative almost immediately. Joe goes to New York, works as a governess.
For Mrs. Kirk. And that's where she meets Professor Bear.
Who is deliberately presented as the anti-Laurie, in conventional terms. Neither rich nor great, young nor handsome.
But Joe notices his character straight away. Sees him carrying coal for a servant girl.
And concludes, trifles show character. So Bear immediately scores points on the moral scale, where Laurie, despite being charming, maybe falls short for Joe.
And Bear, this older, learned German academic, gives her something crucial.
Feedback, real critique. He reads her sensation stories, the ones she writes for money.
And tells her they're like poison in the sugar plum, that she shouldn't be feeding trash to young minds.
It's a direct moral challenge to her commercial writing. And it works. It makes her stop and reconsider everything.
Meanwhile, Amy's off in Europe, embracing her own more pragmatic path.
Right. She's quite upfront about it. Meg didn't marry rich. Joe probably won't, so Amy feels she kind of has to. She seriously considers Fred Vaughn.
Checks all the boxes. Rich, handsome, good family.
Exactly. And this is where people sometimes misjudge Amy, I think. She is planning strategically. But when it comes down to it, she turns Fred Vaughn down. It seems that ultimately, money and position aren't enough on their own. She still needs genuine affection, a real connection. Her pragmatism has limits.
Okay, so we're reaching the end of these particular source excerpts, the harvest time, as the book calls it. Their castles in the air start to become real, but different than they imagined.
Always reshaped by experience, by sacrifice, by maturity. Meg's castle, for instance, the one she dreamed of, full of luxury.
It becomes something much simpler, a little home, and John, and some dear children.
She learns the hard work of managing a household on a budget, raising her twins, Daisy and Demi, and finds her happiness there, in that domestic reality, not in splendid things.
And Amy, she does marry Laurie.
Yes, and her artistic ambitions kind of shift. They become part of making a good life, rather than pursuing fame. She accepts that the happy old times can't come back.
They have to be man and woman now with sober work to do.
Right, and Laurie settles down too, becomes a businessman, uses his wealth philanthropically, helping young artists and scholars, so his energy gets channeled.
And Joe, her fate is maybe the most surprising, stemming from Aunt March's death.
Aunt March leaves her plum field, the big estate. And suddenly, Joe's ambition finds its final form. It's not selfish anymore. It's not lonely.
It's about service. Her ultimate castle is a school.
A good, happy, home-like school at Plumfield, specifically for boys, with Professor Bear to help run it.
A place where she can feed and nurse and pet and scold them. It fulfills that desire she always had for lots of boys around her, but in a nurturing, maternal way.
And the professor returns, after working hard for a year to establish himself.
His reason for waiting is so significant, isn't it?
Absolutely. He says he needed a prospect of one home to give you before he could ask her to join her life with his. He had to fulfill his duty, his part of the bargain first.
He needed something solid to offer.
Right. And Jo accepts. She'd already realized she couldn't bear a rich husband. She needed this partnership, this shared work.
They agree to wait to build Plumfield together. Their marriage is founded on shared purpose, respect, this joint project.
It really feels like the triumph of purpose over maybe youthful passion or conventional romance.
What an incredible journey these sources lay out. You see these sisters starting out defined by their little flaws, their big, sometimes selfish dreams.
And they find their versions of happiness, not through shortcuts, not through just getting what they initially wanted, like wealth or fame.
But through really difficult growth, through sacrifice, through embracing duty and service to
Yeah,
others.
that maturity is hard won for all of them.
It really brings it all back to that idea of duty that Marmee imposed right at the start. And maybe Jo, the most rebellious one, finds the most unconventional path to fulfilling it.
She gives up her early dreams of fame, accepts the hard work of living for others, and that leads her to her real calling, Plumfield, her truly splendid destiny, as she sees it.
Which leaves us and you listening with maybe a final thought to chew on from this deep dive.
Considering everything we've seen here,
Hmm.
what do we value most in our own lives? What's the truly most precious goal? Is it that big, shiny ambition we chase for ourselves?
Or is it maybe found in the quieter, sometimes harder, but honest work we do for the people we care about, the communities we serve? Something to think about.